we've built a structure that we call the kitchen. This is where all the farm's feed is stored. Here we store all the meal type feeds. Each of these boxes is a mix, a pre-mix for a specific batch. So here we have some components, some ingredients. There we have cottonseed, soybean meal, soybean hulls, and minerals. Here we have ground corn.
Welcome to the Santa Fe Agroinstitute's YouTube channel. Today, I am here at Fazenda Arcego, where we will talk about the production systems they use, the management, and everything that has been working well for their production, which includes more than 800 lactating cows. So joining me today is Vinicius, the farm's veterinarian. Welcome, Vinicius. I think you should welcome me, right? Because I'm the one invading your farm here, but welcome to our channel.
Good morning. It's a pleasure, a great satisfaction to have you here on the farm.
Well, Vinicius, what is this place we're in?
So here we've built a structure that we call the kitchen. This is where all the farm's feed is stored. Here we store all the meal type feeds, such as soybean meal, corn, cottonseed, and minerals. This is where we prepare and make all the diets. The machine, the mixer wagon, pulls up here, and with the front loader, we load all the ingredients to create the total mix for the animal's feed.
How was it before? How did you organize this kitchen before?
So before the kitchen, we used to load each ingredient individually. We had issues with loading weights and management, for example, and sometimes we loaded a bit more or a bit less of each ingredient. When we adopted the kitchen as a tool and started doing some pre-mixes beforehand, we managed to minimize this standard error in loading ingredients, leading to a more homogeneous diet.
I see. So let's walk through this step by step. The feed arrives here and you place each one in its designated spot, right?
Exactly.
And then what happens after you place the feed in each spot here?
Each of these boxes is a mix, a pre-mix for a specific batch. So each mix has its ingredients. For instance, the high-producing batch will get some specific ingredients, and the low-producing batches will get others. Then we do the loading of pre-dried feed, silage, wet grain in the premixes.
I see. And what problem did you face before? When you said, we can't continue this way. If we want to grow more, we have to solve this problem. What was the challenge you felt in the kitchen that you overcame and that certainly impacted the farm's growth?
It was quite interesting, Jesse, because when we acquired a wagon that allowed us to generate loading reports, we noticed that we had many loading errors. This undermined the diet provided to the animals. Why? The nutritionist would come, create the diet, and there it was, programmed with X kilograms of a certain product. But during the loading process on the operational side, there were many errors. So we began to see the importance of having a structure, the importance of having organization in the kitchen. That's why we adopted pre-mixing, to minimize this loading error.
And what was this error causing for the animals?
Well, mainly due to starch, for example. We worked a lot with wet grain, which is a fermented grain. When we had an error, for instance, of 30 or 40%, which was common in daily management, it caused metabolic problems like acidosis. So, in addition to harming the animals, we had a deficit in milk production.
I see. Well, let's take a walk around here so we can get to know this kitchen well. So the wagon arrives here.
Yes, this is a small wagon that we use for feeding the animals outside. Soon, the other wagon we use for feeding the production batches will arrive. It pulls up here, then the front loader picks up each ingredient already in the premix, and what remains outside, silage, pre-dried feed, wet grain, is loaded into the machine.
This one here?
Then it mixes, the machine mixes, and distributes to the batches.
Right, and over here, what do we have?
Here we have some components, some ingredients. There we have cottonseed, soybean meal, soybean hulls, and minerals. Here we have ground corn. And it's important to note that we have labels on everything. Each section, each box is identified. Why? so that when the caretaker comes, he doesn't struggle with, oh, I don't know what to grab. So it's all visual.
I see. So organization, when I did my apprentice training at CNAC, I was about 14 years old, and we had a class on the 5 S's, which was about organization. So here, if there's no organization, you're going to have a big problem. The person might mix up the feed for the batch or make the wrong mix. So the signs, the visual cues, so that the operator knows exactly what they're handling are essential.
Exactly. In dairy farming, the main tool is nutrition. If you make a mistake there, the cascading effect is huge. It will harm milk production, reproduction, animal health, and so on.
I see. So without organization on the farm, without a professional way to handle the kitchen structure, the feeding, if there isn't a professional system, like in companies, if you walk into a factory or an industry today, everything is labeled, everything is clearly shown so that no one has doubts when they need to make a decision, then there's no dairy farm.
Exactly. And also in terms of waste, for example, today feed carries a lot of added value in expenses. So it generates a high cost. This means that if we have waste here, we also have an economic deficit on the farm.
And is this where the farm's biggest expense lies?
Yes, it's here.
This is where the farm's money goes.
That's why the caretaker needs to be very well trained because he's handling money. So much of what he does here daily, which sometimes seems simple, like handling feed and mixing it, actually involves a lot more.
I see. So if this were Formula One, he would be the driver.
Exactly.
The caretaker's the driver. If he doesn't know what he's doing, he crashes. And then everyone loses. So it's important for the caretaker to have knowledge. We have a book. Could you hand me the book, please? And it's a guidebook for feeding guide. It also covers the kitchen and storage. And sometimes for the caretaker or those working in the company, if you think it's important for them to have a deeper understanding of cow nutrition, as Vinicius said, this is the place where the company's investment is happening. This is where the money goes. Here, and all of this is transformed into milk later. We'll see that afterward. So if the person here doesn't know exactly what they're doing or has doubts, they might look for information, maybe Google it, search YouTube, or look somewhere else. But if they have a resource at hand, easily accessible, maybe by reading it, it becomes easier for them to clear up their doubts. So one of the things we're focusing on a lot at Santa Fe is bringing this content to the people in the field, practical and accessible content, so that when you're out in the field and you have a doubt, you can grab the material, look it up, and clear up your doubts during a break, in the evening, grab your phone sometimes, watch a class on feed management. There are classes with Dr. Mike Hutchins. I think that's interesting too because it's not just the veterinarian who has to do postgraduate studies. It's not just the agronomist or the animal scientist. The people working here, the labor force, need to be trained.
That's it. A very simple thing, for example, is the matter of dry matter. Sometimes when there's a fluctuation of a kilogram of dry matter in a certain feed, like pre-dried or even in silage, this is very harmful to the cow. Why? Because the cow consumes kilograms of dry matter. So if we make a mistake in adding feed at this stage of preparing the diet, it will harm milk production, it will harm the cow's health. So it's a domino effect.
I see. That's great. And what else is there to show us here in the kitchen? What do you think would be interesting for people to know? For sure, I did some research before coming to the farm, and from what I read, it didn't start out producing 22,000 liters a day. I'm sure of that. How was it in the beginning? I imagine that the person here on the farm was starting out with 30 liters a day. Is that it? How many animals were there?
So the farm started 40 years ago. It was a family activity. The cows weren't confined, they were pasture fed. It was a rotational grazing system, so they would go out to the field to feed. And then there was a small milking operation. Everything started slowly. And then they realized that by giving more comfort to the animals, improving their feeding, the production would consequently increase. So that's when they had the courage to start confining the animals. And today we've reached where we are.
I see. So back then it was a smaller pasture based system,
That's right.
and it grew into this. This is just the kitchen, folks. We'll go over to the composting area next, then to the milking area. You'll see how big all of this has become. All right? I think if there are any questions left about the kitchen, leave them in the comments, and I'll give you a challenge. Take a photo of your farm's kitchen, or if you're an animal scientist, of the place where you work, the farms you serve, and the organization within the farm. I think it's fundamental to take photos of the organization, of the signs, and post them on social media, tagging Santa Fe, so we can repost them on our social network. This will encourage others who see it to work more organized as well. Maybe someone hasn't thought of it before. There are so many things here that you can't think of everything. And sometimes you see a photo and think, this idea is good, I can use this on my farm, I can apply this too. So if you take a photo of your farm and post it, tagging us on Facebook, Instagram, I'm sure you'll be helping many people across Brazil and the world, folks. Just Dr. Hutchins' training, you didn't know this, but we're in 58 countries. Plus Iran, I say plus Iran because Iran doesn't show up in our system. So there are 59 countries with Dr. Mike Hutchins' students taking his dairy cow nutrition management training. It's phenomenal. For example, in Iran, there are 130 students studying there, everything translated, dubbed into Persian, so that Dr. Mike's knowledge can reach everywhere. So we're doing this work. Sometimes people don't know, but for example, this book is in 7 languages. Mike's course is in 58 countries, and our goal is for this content to be known as well, to bring in things from outside that work, to show our own practices that work, and help people advance in dairy farming. And for those who aren't yet producing 22,000 liters of milk per day, this will certainly help them reach that goal.
Right.
Done. Thanks, everyone.